live. Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom 223, 224, whatever. I don't care anymore. So, we're here to talk slot cars of all kinds. I don't have any show and tell, but I got a fun club corner to tell about later on. Does anybody have anything they want to show and tell? New items, new projects, new products, whatever the case may be. Raise your virtual hand. John has his hand up. Go ahead, John.
Well, hello everybody. How is everyone? I hope everyone is fine. Oh, good. Yes, good. I actually spent the weekend at a full-scale car show here in Ontario, and it's part of the story, so I'm not blithering too much. And it just shows our age because it was called the Oblivion Car Show, and it was a celebration of 80s and 90s vehicles. And so I brought our 1993 Mazda Miata, which has a whopping 58,000 kilometers. For those of you who ignore the scientific merits of the metric system, I believe that's not quite 40,000 miles. And oh my gosh, the best thing was, first of all, the variety of cars. So they had everything from JDM, everything. Um, but the ages of the participants were like in their 20s, 30s, and teens. So, I mean, when everybody else was shocked that I was the original owner. That's the kind of show it was. Now, here's the really cool thing. So, of course, you get talking with the people who are not only displaying their cars, but also the people who are attending. And I mentioned, of course, that I had this, affinity to small little motorized cars that go around a track. They used to call them slot cars. And almost every kid knew what a slot car was. Now, it might have been HO, it might have been, an Eldon set. They asked me, well, why didn't you bring a slot car set to set up by your car? It's like, so that was really, really cool. And I know sometimes we get a little down because we don't think that the next generation is paying attention. They are. They are. It's if you're a car guy, at some point in time, you had a controller in your hand with some sort of slot car. So I just wanted to give you all some hope, at least north of the border anyway. South of the border, I have no clue. But okay, while there, they had vendors, and I got actually well, I'll show you that later. I actually visited my local hobby store and found something that, honest to goodness, I didn't think I'd ever find. I'm going to share this with you, and let's see if you recognize this kit. No pun intended. Anyone recognize this at all? No?
It's a Jaguar SS100, I think.
Yes, by Tomy. And
oh, really?
Yeah. So this is like, not only is it scale accurate, but where do you see the parts in here? Whoops, hang on. Let me just flip this around here. There we go. It has photo etched parts, including photo etched wire wheels. Oops,
really?
Yeah. Like, hang on, check it out. You see those are photo etched wire wheels.
Yeah. A premium kit.
Yes, absolutely. And then there's photo etched grill. The chassis is actually white metal. And this is bang on 1/32 scale. Comes with a figure to stand by the car. Our hobby store, our local hobby store, tends to get a lot of collections. I guess we're at that stage in our collective lives, I guess. And this came in, and I just had to grab it. Now, I don't know if anyone knows what these are sort of going for on eBay, but they're going. The minimum you can get one for that I've seen is like 75 US, and managed to get it for $30 Canadian.
Well, it's 10, isn't it? Real
yeah,
money?
it's $10 US, right? Yeah, $10 US and a handshake.
Oh,
isn't that cool? Yeah. Now at the show, at the car show, I picked up one of these, and I had never. I guess these are new. I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me more. It's a 1/32 scale Honda 90 Super Cub, and if you are as old as I am, Hot Wheels tried a line of motorcycles called Rumblers in the early 70s that were a complete failure. But this is a 1/32 scale motorcycle, so I have to buy 5 of them because I think they look.
That's
Sorry?
that's the new Super Cub, the 125s. I got the red
Oh,
one
it's not.
here.
Oh, you got one.
It's
Oh, okay, cool.
I got the
Okay,
real
'cause
bike, and that's why I bought the little one of my bike. But yeah, it's a
oh, so you've
125.
seen the? Oh, wow, cool. Because I had
H
a 90, I had a
yeah.
CT70, and I don't know what the nomenclature was, but it was a 90cc, and I guess it was like a Super Cub. So I didn't know these, but my goodness, they'll look great around our track. And next thing is to get a figure to make it fit. But so that's my share, and I hope I've instilled some hopefulness in everyone.
Well, I mean, any kind of automobile, car show racing thing, that's the perfect place to rekindle slot car, knowledge and stuff to people. So yeah, if you ever go to a car show and you've got some slot car stuff to bring with you, friggin' bring it.
Well, yeah, and
And if
silly me, I brought a die cast to sort of show on the car, and then we started talking just because I didn't think anybody
and
younger than myself would know what a slot car was, and these kids did. So I
I
thought that
mean,
was really
even if they didn't have any idea what a slot car was, seeing one and being able to pull the trigger on one going around in circles, would be
yep.
like, that's kind of fun.
So
and if
I'm invited back next year, and I think I'm going to try and jerry rig something with a car battery or something. Although it'll look like some sort of torture chamber. I hope not, but
That's how they used
uh,
to do it.
and
yeah,
if you
for
were a
sure.
kid in the
Jumper cables on
80s,
your Miata.
if you were a kid in
Well,
the
the
80s and
Miata
went to a
battery's
car show,
terrible. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say if you were a kid in the 80s and went to a car show, you'd have been seeing all the cars from the 50s. Now these kids are seeing your car from the 80s, and you're like, oh, I'm old now. I'm the old guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, I guess thankfully I don't look a lot like my age, but they kept asking me, so, did the previous owner die? I said, no, it's me.
Yeah, that's weird.
You're not dead yet.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of these cars are, that's kind of where they came from. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that.
On a note like that, since I have a 83 car of the same era, I get a bunch of kids coming up and saying, oh, really cool car, and want to know about it. And some of the Porsche files, I went to a Porsche group not too long ago. We have a group that meets in the inland just regularly. And a kid just walked up to me and says, oh, I just bought that, but I don't know what's wrong with it. So I had to go through all the stuff that's going on with it. And, he's all excited about having more knowledge about this era of car, which is cool. I mean,
Well, the kind of show this was, Mike, you would have fit right in, but we had everything from some Ferrari Testarossas to Suzuki Jeeps that were from Japan that were right-hand drive. And this kid,
cool.
Yeah, this kid won a second place trophy for his Suzuki because it was absolutely original, had some rust on it, but every people were paying more attention to that than the Testarossa.
That's funny. All right, good stuff. Looks like Dennis is ready to do his show and tell. You ready to talk, Dennis? You're mute.
I am ready to talk. The two white kits from Scale Auto that I've been working on are now painted. So I just thought I'd show you off. The one in front here is the Cadillac that they've done. Really nice. Kind of funny, these weird little, excuse me, these weird little fins that it has, horizontal fins that it has at the back. I decided to paint them my regular pink, so it kind of exaggerated the fancy or the modernistic look of the car. And then the other one is the Peugeot, which to me still looks silly without a wing. And I noticed that the 2023 or 2024 version of the full-size car now has a wing. That they came out pretty good, and they're ready to be track tested. I haven't track tested them yet, but they look pretty good. It's the standard Scale Auto LMP style now with the narrow angle winder and the gray chassis and all of that kind of thing. I have already replaced the tires with G25s. I noticed that these came actually with rear spring suspension on them, which is something that I haven't seen on a white kit before, which was really nice. So we'll see how they go.
The painted one up with it too.
Say again?
The painted cars, the ones that are done by them, also come with the suspension and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, oh, that's good. Anyway, so that's what I've been up to the last couple of days, plus painting a couple of Lexan bodies and getting ready for the next round of racing here. I've actually got to start working on a car for the what's his name? Sometime for the Scale Auto challenge that's coming up.
Beautiful cars, like always.
Thank you. I'm pretty
All
sure you guys get tired of my blue and pink and so on, but
No. Just like you shouldn't care because I don't care if they get tired of blue and yellow. So
sure. Mm-hmm.
The MR Slot Car
I'd be
Challenge.
interested to know how they work for you, Dennis.
Yeah, I'll check it out. I think on my home track there will be a little slippy slidey because they're very long and they have a lot of weight way back at the back of the car with that motor. But I think at Electric Dreams they probably work quite well. Trying to see why my camera won't come back up now.
I was just correcting you. It's the MR Slot Car Challenge.
Say again?
I was correcting you. It was the MR Slot Car Challenge, not the Skill Out.
Oh, yeah, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I haven't started working on those cars yet.
Okay.
But yes, it's MR Slot Car Challenge that's coming up next September the 12th.
let me see if I can. There you go. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. And Garth has
You're
his
welcome.
hand. What would you like to share, Garth?
You see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, this is just a couple of updates on my the testing thing. We were doing a little testing yesterday, and there's two cars that we were playing around with yesterday, and this was the first one. This is one you guys have all seen with the rotating motor pod. Okay, and we gotta see if I can move this out of the way here. Okay, there's the car. That's the bottom of it. Okay, and this is the changes that we made to this from the previous week. Was I had a big Mauer plate in the front of it. Okay, and this is it was a 5.5 gram plate, and then so I cut it down to 3.5 grams. So that was one change was in this area here. Another thing of note was the way I put this tungsten thing in here. Instead of putting screws in there, I just put a thin piece of ABS plastic tube through there. Okay, and that worked pretty good. Really light. And
Did you glue the tube, or is it just a press thing?
yeah, what I did is I stuck it was a solid rod, real thin ABS, and I pushed it in, and then I just put a couple little drops of epoxy on it, and then pushed it in a little bit farther, then cut it off. So
Okay.
it's glued in there. So it worked pretty well,
Mhm.
you know. And
Yeah, very light.
yeah, and this is the other change to this car was we had 2 silicone O-rings on it, and we went to 3. Okay, and this car, my test driver Joe went 2 seconds faster with this car from the week previous. Okay, and some of that was the changes, and some of it was he's getting better. Okay, at his driving style. Okay, and to the Mike Maurer will be happy to know that the bias of the car is now 5941, the magic Mike Maurer number. So that was the
Cool.
first. That was the first one. The second one is we just started on this car. This was actually an older car, but we're finally getting around to this guy I've got as a test driver that's coming over every week now. He's gotten to the point where he's beating the boss. So, we're off into the testing the next thing, which is the full chassis car. And this is the full chassis SLS car. Okay. Again, a polycar body, the 3D printed wheels and 3D printed guide, and a 3D printed full chassis on it. Okay. That's the full chassis. And this has got a Predator 25K ball bearing motor in it. Okay. And I had a couple of these motors, ball bearings, that I wasn't going to use anywhere else. So I said, you know what? I like this 25K motor so much that I said, I'm just going to put them in these two cars. We have two cars. And, but what I'm doing is anything I change on the cars, I only change on his car. And then we test it with him driving. And then if we decide to do something next week, we go ahead and make the change again, or we change both cars to the same thing. Okay. This is basically what that car looks like on the inside. No changes to the front. The weight in the front of it this is 3.5 grams. It's the way it's been ever since I put the car together months ago. Still 3.5 grams. The back, got this on these little gussets, 2.6 gram weights. So 1.2 grams total right in front of the motor. So that was the only other change to this car. And let's see. I mean, there's a shot of there's another shot of the two little pieces of weight, and they're just epoxied in there. Just a couple pieces of 1/16 inch lead. And that's the motor, 25K. And on this car, my friend Joe, the test driver, broke the track record, okay, at 22.8 seconds, okay, which was full second faster than I had done with the car a couple previous weeks. Now, I don't know if I could. I mean, I was kind of in shock. I mean, it was a hair on fire kind of laugh. Okay, so it's just this really, really great car. And at the end of it, I said to him, well, what do you think we should do? And he says, nothing. So we're going to leave both cars the same for next week and do the same test all over again, just to see if we go faster or, slower. So
you're running on plastic, right, Garth?
yes.
Yeah. Well, that Predator is sort of an unfair advantage on plastic because it's got polyneomagnets in it. So that gives you a ton of downforce.
Awful fast.
One other question. Have you tried using one of your silicone rings between the bottom of the pod lug and the top of the chassis plate?
No, but it's been suggested to me.
Yeah, because right now, in essence, the pod tilts. It doesn't really twist because one arm cannot go down past where the lug is. So if you trim the lugs a little bit and put a compression ring underneath it, it will allow a little bit more true rotation, because right now the pod doesn't rotate, it just tilts.
Well, Jim Rose suggested that to me quite a long time ago, and I'm going to get there, but I don't want to do that until I can print it that way. Okay, I don't want to just do it like a shave thing. Okay, I'm going to actually print the chassis with that on there. And I have this thing, Chris, that I feel like it's happening with that car, with that pod, it's hard for me to explain what it is, but it has to do with the fact that it's nylon. And the with the pod and the wheels and the whole configuration of it, that rotating thing and the suspension and that, and it's almost like the thing. I feel like the pod is working in concert with all the other parts in the car. That's how nice the car is. Okay, now, as far as the way it drives and everything. So, I will try that. Okay, and I was just wondering, what do you think? See, my thought about it, Chris, was maybe I should try. In general, these suspension things on this pod have come out to be like two pieces of foam or two pieces of O-rings or three pieces of O-rings. That's kind of the configuration that seems to work in the different cars that I'm testing. And I'm just wondering if I should go even farther than just putting one under there. Okay. Because one would be, shaving the bosses down, with one thing would be probably about 2 millimeters if you put two stainless washers in between the O-ring piece. Okay. And so I was thinking, well, maybe I should make it so that it's two. What do you,
Garth,
what do you
Garth, could you put the picture of the O-rings back up again for a second?
It's going to take me a second. Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it shouldn't be too bad.
There.
If I were you, Garth, what I would do is I would leave the chassis plate alone. And if and when you reprint the pod, I would move the rear pod. I would raise the rear pod lugs so that will give you some space underneath the pod lug, between the pod lug and the chassis plate.
Yeah, but how much? I mean, it's like two. Yeah, I mean, should it be?
Well, yeah. The other thing I would do, your O-rings are made out of what?
This particular one is soft silicone.
Okay. If they're very soft silicone, that's fine. I know that the ones we have were the MR slot car ones are extremely soft. I've tried all kinds of them, and I always keep going back to those. If you allow,
these are the foam ones, Chris.
okay,
That's a EVA foam, and those are really soft.
yeah, they're great. The only problem with the foam is that after a while, foam doesn't have memory has a really good longevity to it. So after a certain point in time, the foam will compress and sort of stay compressed, if you know what I mean. The silicone lasts much, 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 much better. So on that one, same thing. That's a good picture there. You can just raise the pod lugs in position wise on the back surface of your pod, and now you can put some underneath, because what you have now, as one side comes up, the other side cannot go down. It's restricted by the pod touching the chassis plate. So to get a more consistent torsional flex and roll out of the car, you really need something underneath. That's why a lot of or some of the manufacturers now are starting to go to a single screw in the back of the pod in the middle, controlled by arms on either side of the pod, sort of up by the motor area, and
Yeah.
that lets the pod rotate, as opposed to your pod doesn't rotate, it tilts.
Keep in mind that yeah, I understand that, but keep in mind that this pod is it's only designed just to fit into a slot.ig car. So that was that.
Right. So, but that would,
the idea behind it is so that, but that being said, okay, trying what you're suggesting, what Jim Rose suggested, is the absolute way I want to do it. I just want to, and I'm almost done testing this pod. It's so good, Chris. Okay.
Mhm.
Anything I put it in
Mhm.
is magic. Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, that's how good. And there is a difference between the silicone and, like, for example, this car you're looking at here, this is the Polycar 330. And this car likes the foam. Okay. It's so light. Okay. And keep in mind, I got those really super light wheels on there, and they're all even these wheels are, all the weight is inboard on them, and they're SLS nylon printed. So it's
yeah, I mean, it's an easy fix. Next time you print some more pods, just raise the pod lugs, and then you can put some foam and or silicone underneath the pod
So,
lug.
Garth, if your pod lugs are like a slotted one, they're probably 3 millimeters from top to bottom. That's the dimension for a slotted pod, and you can easily cut the bottom millimeter off of that and have them only 2 millimeters thick.
Right.
actually they're better than that because they're thicker now.
Yeah, you can take the bottom away as much as you like, as long as you raise the top.
They're thicker slot that it pod. I just don't want to. I don't want to do. I'm going to print one. Like, I can just change the file and print it. Print
If you want to stop your share, I'm going to show. I've got one here I can show you. Oh, good. Okay. I need to share my screen, and that's going to look a bit wrong. Moment. Can you see that one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you see that there's a silicone, a flat washer underneath the pod, in between the pod and the chassis? There's also a clear nylon spacer too. Well, that pod is designed, as you can see, it's not 3 millimeters thick there, where the motor pod is the grey part, and it's not 3 millimeters thick. It's a lot thinner. Right. And that's designed intentionally to have that space underneath it, which has been filled with the required thickness to get the chassis at the same ground clearance that it once had.
Yeah, I can do exactly the same thing. Okay. Right into a slot that it car. So,
yep.
And I did try, I would answer what Chris was asking. I did try originally just to put a silicone O-ring underneath the head of the screw, the head of just the regular screw, before I even had suspension on there. And that made the thing go 0.4 seconds faster just by itself. Okay. And that was underneath, you know what I mean? So.
Yeah, but that still doesn't really allow that will allow tilt, not rotational twist, because the pod lug hits on the chassis plate and cannot progress
down any further.
I've done hundreds of them over for guys at the club, and I've been doing that for, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years.
It's an easy enough change to make in the print to try, Chris. You know what I mean? So
no, absolutely. I mean, even as Wayne was saying, I've cut standard bog stock lugs on the back of slotted pods in half in depth and have never, ever, ever, ever had any issue whatsoever. So, but the way to do it is just recalculate and just move those pod lugs up a bit vertically in the chassis, and you'll have a car that'll probably transition a little bit better and be a little bit smoother as well.
Okay.
It's easily done with a slotted pod, because you can do things like get your pod on your flat plate and then use feeler gauges underneath the wings of your motor pod, and you'll often find that a stock one, they won't necessarily be the same height as one another, and they should be. So you can check a stock pod, and then you can also undercut a stock pod if you want to and change that gap. You can play around with something that you've already taken out of a car just to experiment, and then design it in. You're going to design a 1.5 millimeter undercut, I think, because your cross section of your O-ring is 1.5, isn't it?
I'm actually thinking more than that. Okay, because what to something you said a long time ago, Wayne. You suggested that I should always have metal washers in between the suspension material. Okay, so if you
in between your O-rings, if you're going to stack two O-rings, I would like to put a very thin metal washer between the two so that they can't slip sideways against one another. They're always pressed against a flat surface.
Well, the way I've been doing it now, okay, that seems to work really well, is one on the top, one on the bottom, whether it's a single or a double. Okay.
Yeah. What Chris and I are talking to you about is taking what you've already got to another level, the next level.
Is this up? Can you guys see this?
Yes, we can, Chris.
Okay. Not the best picture. It wasn't designed to show you what specifically we're talking about. This is obviously a thunder slot. And I have the lugs on the back of the pod are here. And I have thinned these down. And these are probably, God, I don't know, 25 thou thick deep. And then it's hard to see, but I've used washers underneath the nylock. And they won't show here, but they're in these gaps underneath here. So now it's not perfect, but it's much better than a fixed downstop. As this wheel comes up, the foam and or silicone on this one lets this wheel go down a little bit. So it's a much more true rotation of the pod as opposed to a tilting pod. Now, on some cars, obviously, the MR slot cars have the single piece back here, so the pod rotates perfectly, and then the compression on the pod is controlled. And again, I've got silicone washers both above the pod lug and below the pod lug on the side, which eliminates free motion, and it allows you to dial in the compression that you want as the pod rotates.
Yes, we talked about how you tighten your body down to the chassis. Does this affect the tightness that you tighten down a body to the chassis?
Well, just think that your body is attached to the chassis plate, not the pod. So the pod will rotate within the chassis plate. As a matter of course, yes, I always allow the body to move a little bit on the chassis. And my experience over many years is that an inch is as good as a mile. So as long as my body has some free movement and the body mounts are not distorting the chassis plate, that's fine.
Okay.
And that's to do with things that you don't necessarily always think about, including the diameter of the head that you use as a body screw. Because if those heads are tight in the recesses in the chassis, then they will fix the location of the screws, and that may put a longitudinal tweak into your car, if the body posts are even slightly further apart or closer together than the holes in your chassis, then you get that misalignment. Whereas if you use a smaller diameter head, that misalignment can or open up the holes that the screws go through themselves. Then you
Well,
can accommodate that misalignment if there is any.
yeah, that doesn't do it. Opening up the holes doesn't do anything for the diameter of your screw heads.
No, it doesn't. No, you kind of need both for it to be able to work, don't you?
What some racers do, and the more I just chuck your screws in an electric drill, spin them around, and use a Dremel with a cutoff disc to just buzz down the diameter of the screw heads.
Yep, done that before.
Yep.
There is a trend though at the moment for large diameter screw heads, I've noticed. There are a lot of people that only want the body shell to be able to move vertically, and then that's a beneficial thing. And I'm not certain that's 100% correct. I don't mind the body shell to move forward, backward, left, and right, but just only the tiniest amount. At least if it does move, you know it's not tweaking the chassis.
Right. I mean, essentially, all you're trying to do is isolate the body, which is basically a resonance chamber. You just want to isolate the body from any vibrations in the drivetrain chassis. And I've seen some guys, and you go to marshal their car and you lift the car up 4 inches and the chassis is still on the track. Like you do not need to do that. Actually, that is having too much body movement from a physics point of view is not a good thing, because your car's going around the corner, the body tries to lift up, and if it's got a lot of vertical movement, it gains inertia as it goes up. And then when it hits the screw heads, the further it can travel, the more inertia it gets. And when it hits the screw heads and stops, there's more inertia now trying to throw the car off the track.
It also seems like it would be trying to change the center of gravity of a car during a turn as it's lifting.
If the body is not attached firmly to the chassis, it doesn't change the center of gravity. If it is, the center of gravity is fixed because the body can't move anywhere anyway.
Right. Okay.
On the subject of the screw heads, I remember that Ian talked about set up his car at Electric Dreams and changing the pod screws to a smaller set from a larger set to try and control the movement fore and aft a little bit, and said that one made a difference. I can't remember which way was better for him at that particular track, but that was one of the things he used to do that. So I've also found that the old tape on the bottom trick is good for limiting fore and aft movement, and that's found to be quicker on most stuff that I do. So you limit the fore and aft movement, but not the up and down movement.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways to do that. You can do that several different ways. I do not like tape because I don't mind tape in a sprint race. I do not like tape in a proxy race or any long race. Tape will fatigue over time. So what you start the race with and what you end the race with are two different flex levels as the tape wears. The tape can also come unstuck on a corner and fold over on itself, and if it does, you have problems. Again, but for a sprint race where you can sort of monitor the whole thing's not a big deal. But for any sort of a proxy, if you're sending your car out around the world for 8 or 10 months, I just don't think tape is the most elegant way to go.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not elegant, but it's effective. You say it,
meaning, yes, not just cosmetically, just There's a better way to engineer your car than with duct tape or fiber tape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, Chris. But so depends, I think, also on the tape. I mean, I remember that I don't do proxy, and I don't really care about proxy. But I remember there was on the GT3 proxy a while ago. There was, I think, it was a BA Ferrari with a 3D printed chassis, I believe, and they were using like tape as a put like a longitudinal and kind of on the short side, and that was the winner of the proxy.
Right. No, yeah, I get it. I mean, there's probably other things that, just take any one of your cars and put a piece of tape on it. It's not all of a sudden going to start winning proxies. What you certainly can do if you want to limit pod movement is put the pod in the car, see where it moves, and then you can glue small pieces of styrene, either the chassis plate or the outside of the pod, and sand it so you can get exactly the movement that you want to have. Fore and aft, sideways, all kinds of stuff.
And you've seen that before, haven't you, Gio? That's what we did with the Le Mans car.
We did, yeah. We did, I think, the tape, basically, it's a quick fix for people like me that are not really good and kind of filing and measuring. But yeah, with the styrene and stuff like that, I think it's more for you, Chris or Wayne, that you guys are in all this kind of stuff.
You see, the fitting of tape doesn't always do what people think it does. It does a few different things, not just change the limit to vertical motion like people think it does. It also ties your pod to a longitudinal location and a lateral location, and that's as much of what it does. I think it does that as much, or probably more, than limiting the vertical motion.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. In order to stop the fore-aft movement is what I use it for, not so much for the vertical movement.
That's right.
You can leave the tape a little bit loose to let your suspension control it. But at any rate, and I have experienced that problem. It's like, oh, why did my car suddenly go so? Of course, the tape has rolled under and is sticking to the track, basically. So you do have to be careful and renew it.
Yep. All right, let's let Big Den get a word in edgewise. What would you like to share today, Big Den?
Well, thanks, Greg, for providing me with the virtual breadcrumbs to find my way back to the chat. that long since I've been on that, I didn't sort of think about that universal link, for every meeting. So thank you for that. But it's been a while. I was look at myself on the screen. I think it's probably about as long as I've had a haircut too, because I'm not quite sure I'll go to your extent, Greg, but I do need to get a haircut, that's for sure.
I got all of mine cut.
Just a couple of little notes. Thank you first to Wayne. In one of his recent videos, he showed an excellent tip on making a special guide fastening nut by using a nylock nut in conjunction with a long grub screw, which is very precise and very easy to fix because you're using your Pro Tool or your little hex key to tighten the nut, and it's a lot easier than trying to get a pair of pliers or something onto the guide nut to try and tighten it. So thanks for that, Wayne. Mike was talking about Ian Douglas's chassis movement. I think Ian on his car, he had the big screws in the pod mounting screws in the front to limit the pivoting at the front, and the smaller ones in the rear. So okay, so I've got some share and what's it called, show and tell. That long I didn't know what it was, so we'll start off.
Just while you're pulling that up, Dennis, I was reading a post on OSLOT the other day, and I just wanted to comment that Giovanni is no longer with Thunderslot.
Oh, isn't he? Yeah, well, yeah. After I'd made that comment, I wasn't quite sure, but it's not Mauricio though, is it?
Mauricio has nothing to do with Thunderslot.
No, that's right. No, so I was just sort of thinking about the guy who'd made the comment. So someone's
And that change raises some questions for future Thunderslot stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting to it says something about my screen sharing being paused, so I'll try again.
Yeah, I was just getting a gray screen.
Yeah.
Nice gray, though.
It was nice and stripy. There we go.
Okay, so now can you see my little red car?
Yep, but there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an advanced slot, and I just like the look of it. I'm not particularly into rally cars, but it was I was getting another advanced slot from a local retailer, and he had this one on special, and it's 4-wheel drive. So just a bit of something. I like the look of it, so just something to have a bit of a play around with. So we'll just go through there, and the chassis is pretty much inline.
There we go.
Inline Thunder slot. Yeah, I'll be taking out that 25k motor though. That's for sure. They're just a bit vicious for our small track down here, and but I noticed they're using the green hard pod in a lot of their cars as standard equipment now. So there we go. And I think for local racing, if you want to you just take the belt off if you want to run it in 2-wheel drive. So that's only probably a little drawback. They're plastic wheels all around. They're not set screw wheels on the rear. So, yeah. Now this was the main game, as this was the one I was really after was the new Crema Porsche that's only been out a month or so. So, again, I like the look of it, and I seem to be like the devil's advocate for advanced slot cars. There's just something about them, their LMPs and things that I really like. So. This is one of the Crema Porsches. I do have some of the older ones. Just a few different views of it. Bit of detail at the back. Nice shot. This is where the real change is, though, is in the chassis. Up till now, Avant seem to have wanted to make their chassis universal, and so there's been very little in the way of side pans, or front pans. They've just had this basic central chassis with with an angle down here where you can see this thin line, so that they'll fit most of their bodies that are of the same wheelbase. So, and also this pod here, the motor mounting is adjustable, so you can just slide it back and forth with 1, 2, 3 screws to get your gear mesh right, which is quite nice. The other thing is that like the new slotted Jaguar that was announced at Electric Dreams, the body actually sits on the chassis. So advanced slot before had this tendency with one forward and one rear mounting screw to rock a bit, and it was hard to get them flat. But now the body sits on the top of the chassis, so it'll be a lot easier to control, body movement and get it set up all right.
It was a Mazda that we showed.
So again,
it was a Mazda, not a Jag.
Oh, Matt, sorry, Dennis. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm not sure whether there's a new Jag coming out that's same sort of geometry too. I'm looking at some of my advanced slots in the past, as they tend to have a little bit. The pod seems to get have a bit of too much side to side. I'm thinking what I might try is just a little plate across here to limit the up movement of this end of the chassis, just so that it doesn't do too much of this. So anyway, that's something to think about. The rear end is okay. Just another look at that. The rear end is another big change too. They've got springs in the back here. I'm not sure how effective they'll be on our wood tracks. I guess they're mainly designed for plastic, and they're finally using brass bearings in the back, where for years they used nylon bearings there. So, a bit of a closer look at the axle stoppers to control your your horizontal play, which I know was a Chris likes the idea of that, just so that rather than sort of have just washes and things and spaces. And there we are back to the very beginning.
You should put a spacer in between that stopper, Dan, and the bushing.
Oh yes, so that a thrust washer, so to speak. Yeah, just a bit.
This would be a nylon one.
Yeah.
Not a good idea to have a rotating surface grinding against a non-rotating surface.
That's right. Yeah, so minimize the drag and the thanks, Chris. Yeah, so
this
that's pretty.
Whole deal of an adjustable motor pod sounds nice, but I wonder how badly this thing's going to chatter, because there's so little connection between the end of the motor where the pinion is and the gear.
You mean
on the pod itself, right? There's this little upright that holds the front end of the bearing of the bushing, but that's not connected to the part that's bolted in, that's screwed into the motor.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, I guess time will tell, Dennis. You don't want to get it on the track.
That's one of the things that causes chatter on the Ninkos always, and any other and the early Racer Sideways Group 5 cars were like that too, where there wasn't enough support for that bearing. And
I might even try the tube in here, the tube method in there to.
It might help a little, but I still think
it's not so much. It's basically the relationship between the upright on the gear side and the pod screw. That's space right there. So even if you put an axle tube in, it's going to stop the independent flexing of the rear bushings, but it's not going to do too much to alter or beef up the strength between the gear side uprights and
the motor.
The motor
plate.
That's where the issue is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention too is that just looking at this photo, is that these cars are now coming with the 21k motor as standard, which is which got to be a lot better for down on our shorter tracks here. So so it's just that these only arrived in the mail yesterday our time, so it's barely had time to pull it apart and take the photos before we come on here. So I'll stop the share. And as Lenny broke.
What are those holes that you have on top of the bushing, Big Dan?
Sorry, what was that, Gio?
So in the bushings, in the brass bushings, basically there are some holes on the top that you can see. It's just for
lubrication.
Okay, so basically, who was? I think Slotting Plus. I think had like a bushing that you could rotate in order to change the. So.
The elliptical bearings.
Yeah. It's not that basically.
Yeah. I think these are standard bushings. Yeah, I think the holes are purely for make it easy to put some oil in, Gio.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't buy those elliptical bushings.
Yeah.
Buy the eccentric ones, not the elliptical ones.
Sure. Trying to line those things. Just do not buy those things.
Yeah,
and
that's what
as Lenny Broke would say, I'll shut up and get out of your way now.
Thanks for sharing, Big Den. When I saw the elliptical or the eccentric bushings, I'm like, I understand the point of them, but I would never be able to make those line up properly. I'd have to get a jig.
The main use, I think. I saw some people using them, for instance, for setting up the height of the front axle for Carrera cars.
Yeah.
And again, of course, it's not that easy, but it's not, I think, as critical as having the rear axle proper aligned, right?
That's what I'm talking about. Using them on the rear axle.
No, I would not use them on the rear axle.
I mean, the reason I see people using them on rear axles is to basically do an offset of the axle because the pod can't be offset or whatever. Or you could I guess you could use them to adjust the gear mesh on a car where the pod can't the motor can't move relative to the axle. But yeah, I've never tried them and I don't plan to. But more power to anybody who wants to. Anywho, we got other hands up. What was that?
The other thing quickly I'd add is that this body is very light. I haven't weighed it, Wayne, so I don't know how light, but it's a very light body. Yeah, maybe if you had to race it at electric drink, you have to add weight to the body. But
well, only if the rules require it.
Yeah,
there's actually quite a lot to like about advanced slot body shells. I've seen them be really, really competitive, but never on an advanced slot chassis.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
They come with Lexan windows, I believe, don't they? Big Jenny got Lexan windows.
I think so.
Nice.
If they have windows.
Yeah, if they have windows.
This is just actually a black. It's a black anti-glare windscreen, I suppose you'd say.
But the interiors are vacuum formed too, as far as I recall.
I think that's correct.
That one looks plasticky, Where are we?
Yeah, that one's plastic.
Yeah,
but I have seen some with vacuum formed interiors.
Yeah,
Pretty
I know you can get them as an option. So.
All righty, good stuff. Moving on, Jeremy, what you got?
Sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. My bad.
Okay, moving on. Gio, what you got?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to raise my. No,
okay,
Jeremy did that on purpose just to mess with you.
I have two short stuff to show or tell, basically. So
nothing short with you, Gio. Don't give us that.
no, it's really short. I mean, quick actually. So I don't think that I have kind of showed this stuff here. I mean, converting the escalators to lane changers to oxygen drivers. Have I, Greg?
No.
Remember? Yeah. Okay. So, so my Scaletric. So we're using Scaletric track for running oxygen, right? So you can use a standard Scaletric kind of lane changers without any modifications. But I don't know why. Maybe it's the humidity of bringing a car full of rain inside the garage where the truck is parked, but some of the lane changers are kind of giving up and not working properly. So I decided to kind of modify them in order to install oxygen lane changer drivers. To do that, I mean, the Scaletric ones are driven by, each flipper is driven by two solenoids. So the electronics basically send a signal whether you want to go straight, which one solenoid that will pull the flipper straight, or when you want a lane changer, which the opposite solenoid that will pull it in order to kind of move you to the other lane. And so the first modification that you need to do is to remove one of the solenoids per lane and add a small spring. And so once you put the spring, then the spring is pulling the flipper such that you go always straight, and then the other solenoid will be activated only when you want to change a lane. Maybe that's not to make sense to most of you that don't do digital, but I didn't have a better time to prepare or more time to prepare for this. But so the first modification I need to do is to add a spring. So, and that's what I've done. So I bought a bunch of springs from AliExpress. I started trying which one had enough tension to keep the flipper straight, but also allow the solenoid to be able to pull. And these solenoids are very, very weak. So this was something that I had to experiment. I had to experiment also with the length of the spring as well. So a couple of coils make a difference. So then the next step is to try to locate the position where to put the electronics. So each lane changer for the driver for oxygen comes with two pieces. So there is one piece that is the main board where you can also kind of through some dip switches, you can select the behavior of the lane changer. And then the other piece up here is where the infrared sensor is. So this is what basically send the signal from the car to the lane changer of where to go basically lane changing go straight. And so the other problem was to locate where I'm gonna put the sensors here in such a way that is close enough to the flipper so that the car has enough time to open the flipper and then execute the lane change. And also make sure that there are, if there is another car in front of it, it's not gonna move everything on the other side or miss the flipper. And so as a reference point, I use, because these oxygen drivers were designed originally for either Carrera or Ninco. And so with the Ninco, because there is a spring that try to bring the flipper back, when you set the lane changer operating in Ninco mode, then what it does is kind of give tension or power to the solenoid for a fraction of a second so that the flipper is open and stays open for a while. Then the car has time to move through, and then the spring will bring it back when the solenoid is powered off. So I'm using that kind of principle here. And as a starting point for locating the sensors, I kind of use the one that is an Ninco standard piece. So I don't remember what is the exact distance, but that's what you're seeing here. Then it's a matter of bringing power to this stuff and connect it. So if there is power going from the main board to the solenoids, and then connecting this main board to the sensor, infrared sensors here. Let me check. So yeah, so this it's what kind of looks like after fitting all the bits back. So this board, this cover here, it's kind of covering in the standard Scalextric where the actual sensors are. So in Scalextric standard, so the sensor will be maybe 15, I don't know, maybe 10 centimeters from where I put these ones from oxygen over here. So with these kind of settings, I put the lane changer on the truck and I start testing it, but it didn't work that well for two reasons. The first one, using the power supply that I had, the flippers were, once I was powering up the lane changer, the flipper were going like crazy up, open and close, open and close. I changed the power supply to one of those cheap AliExpress, and it seems that solved the problem. So I installed then the lane changer on the truck and started doing some laps and testing. And what I discovered was that the sensors were too close to the flipper. And so what was happening was that the car was going over the sensor, asking for lane changing. And by the time the flipper was in lane changing position, the car was already over the flipper. And so basically was going always straight while the lane changer was opening like a fraction of a second after the car passed over. And so what I did here, then I said, okay, let's move the sensors in the original position as a Scalextric. So I removed that cover and put the sensors there. Here you can see the holes that I had to drill in order for the previous position. And with these ones, so putting the lane changer back on the truck, even like in a section that is pretty fast, it was working perfectly. I mean, no problem with the flippers going crazy. I had the cars lane changing even high speed. I mean, the car was kind of like almost the slotting how fast I was going over the lane changer, and the flippers were timed perfectly. And so then the next step was, okay, let's try and test with multiple cars in a race setting. So yesterday the guys coming over and like we started doing our practice laps, and then one of the flippers start going crazy again, and I don't know I don't know why, if it's basically I don't believe it's about, maybe the LEDs light touch, because I did most of the testing, I think, was during the daylight. So, but I mean, after like 2 or 3 laps at least, I mean, a bit more than that, but after like a bunch of crazy lane changer, then I stopped or paused the practice and I removed the lane changer, put back Scalatrix one. So the experiment didn't go as well as I was planning, but I don't know what's the problem with the flipper going like that. I thought it was only one side, and again with the one single car it was performing okay. It was only when I had multiple cars that did that. So anyway, back to the drawing board, I would say, and I will report back here. And I want to also say that these lane changers drivers were not designed for Scalatrix, so this is me hacking on it. So although I mean the flipper behavior does not have anything to do with the fact that these are Scalatrix lane changer, because there isn't nothing Scalatrix anymore. And as you can see, the power is also coming not from the truck or from the rails, but it's coming from a dedicated power supply. It sucks. Anyway, yeah, this is the first. Any question on this? I don't know if it was even clear. Yeah.
You might try a stabilized power supply for your lane changes.
Yeah. Okay. So how do I find that? I mean,
you mean like a universe uninterruptible backup power supply kind of thing?
Well,
with
just
battery?
a proper regulated voltage supply.
Pretty sure.
Most of them are these days.
Like you're not just using a wall wart, are you, Gio?
No. I mean, so I'm using the one, the cheap one from AliExpress. Those that go up to 12 volts.
Okay. Yeah, that might have.
Before I was using this one from, the one from Pendle. One from Pendle that I think it's regulated. This goes up to 15 volts, and I think it's like maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 amps. So it seems like a decent kind of power supply. But that one, actually, I have 2 of those, and that one basically were causing the flip, even like on my testing bench, the flippers were going crazy, even without any car or anything else attached to it. So only when I changed to that kind of cheap AliExpress things, then the lane changer were behaving. I don't know, man. I mean, it's the power here in this.
That's weird.
In my garage that goes like, I don't know.
And it's improper flipper behavior, eh?
Yeah.
It's all the time or now and then?
Okay, good question. So depending what is the time frame reference, because when I was with the one car, it was working perfectly multiple times. When I had the race, and again was with the lights in the garage on because it was evening, and with the 4 cars, that's how. I mean, when one flipper started basically doing this kind of flipping behavior.
Because I had that too on my track, and I've talked to the guys in Best in Eindhoven, because they have dozens of them. I had 2 or 3 lane changer that does the same behavior with the normal setup from Ninko. I've covered them up. I've covered them up so they are completely in the dark. Somebody said it's the LEDs. Somebody said it's the TL lightning. It doesn't matter what I did. I did very expensive DC modifications for the power. It doesn't matter at all. It didn't solve the problem. Only to do a new circuit in it, and then it's gone. So I'm not saying that all the circuits of slotted are perfect. And I don't know if that's the question. The people in Eindhoven said it has also something to do with the how do you call that? With plus and minus, the earth, where you have to have a clean earth line.
Good ground.
Ground, yeah, a perfectly ground, and they did the track go to the ground into the ground. So at the building. So on a copper pipe, something like that, so that the earth can
Wow.
flow, the ground can flow away. But I couldn't do that over here, so I changed the chips, and then it was gone.
Yeah. So yeah.
So it's
I don't know if
it's a
that
difficult
could be-
it's a difficult problem, and I've tried everything, but it didn't had a solution for that also. And I've did on the slot forum. I asked people who has tracks, they didn't have the solution either.
Yeah, what kind of pissed me off is that I mean, like Le Mans, they have many of them, right?
Yeah.
And actually, they are connected to the rails, so
Yeah.
they don't have any dedicated power supply. I don't know, you know, Eindhoven or even like in Mechelen. So the Paul Ricard in Paul
Yeah, Paul
Ricard.
Ricard.
I mean, that's also a pretty recent track, right? So
Yeah.
with and they work perfect. I mean, I didn't see any kind of weird behavior
No,
of the
no.
lane changer. So what the
That's
heck
actually
am I
something-
doing wrong?
That actually kind of makes me think back to something that slotted. With the SCP-3 controllers, it was important for the controller to be powered by the same power supply as the track is being powered by. I think it wasn't necessarily true on all the different digital systems. I forget which one it was the most important with, maybe Scalextric Digital. But I wonder if you want to do one more test with the thing, is go ahead and tap the power to the rails and see if using the power from the rails it works.
Okay, I can do that. I mean, the only thing is that it's you know, I'm not using like the power goes to the rails. It's not I mean, it's not even like 12 volts. You know, we are raising like 10.5 to 9.5, depending which car, which motors we're using. So I don't know if it's gonna be too low, but anyway, maybe something to test. Yeah.
I was gonna say you could still test it at, turn the voltage to the rails up. If it doesn't work properly at lower voltage, it might still, but if it doesn't, then turn the power to the rails up, drive some different cars, put magnets back in a couple of cars or whatever, and then see if that. I'd be curious to find out if that makes those work, because what Henry is saying is basically all of the things that everybody suggested wasn't working, and the only solution was to replace the lane change electronics. So if that's what you're staring at is either replacing the electronics or maybe it'll work from the rails, what do you got to lose?
Right.
I have also a question in that direction. I have here a lane changer, and it's the bent one, so you don't see a lot of them. And when I open them, there are two colors in it: a yellow one and a red one. Is there a difference between those two? Because I had two chips on it, and the red one is not going to open. I will try next week the yellow one, but the red one doesn't work. And I've used two different chips. I've never seen it also, the red one. Because in all the lane chasers I've got, they're all yellow.
No, I don't know. Yeah.
Here at the other side, because you can go from left to right, it's also a different configuration. Yellow.
Ah, are you sure that basically the red one is So is the can you turn the lane changer the other way around, please?
Like top up?
Hey, just
the
a question.
top.
Those don't have a polarity on them, do they?
No.
No,
Okay.
solenoids are either energized or not.
Do you have a flipper in? Yeah. So basically, so the red ones I think is operating the X-Ting flippers. Seems
Sorry?
that yeah. So
Oh,
you have flippers in for entering the lane changer, but also exiting the lane changer. And the red ones, I think, are operating the exiting flipper.
because you can't use that in either direction, can you?
I don't know if you can use in either direction, but I think that
I think
basically
so
the,
because it's the direction from this side, and the flipper opens,
Yeah.
and it's from that side, and the flipper opens.
So you could drive the car over that either direction and it would work.
Probably, I don't know. I don't use it like it was with the hardware of Ninko.
Oh, okay. But that would explain what Gio is saying. If it's unidirectional, if you can only use it going one direction, then the red solenoids are for moving the flipper that. Well, no, because there's one on each end, not red on one end and yellow on the other end. It's both red and yellow on each end.
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
see
So
the-
So that doesn't make sense either.
But
Because if it was
if it-
unidirectional, and yellows were for the entry flipper and reds
yeah,
for the
yeah.
exit.
I think basically the yellow are working on one lane and the red one are operating the other lane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
So the red ones operating the flippers in one lane and the yellow ones operating the flippers in the other lane.
Yeah,
Yeah, but is
but
there
I think it's a unidirectional, right? Because if you look on the track side again, not on the bottom side, on the left in the picture area there, we have two dead strips.
yeah.
And we
There
also
is
have
also
it
the right.
in the other ones, right? Is are the dead strips there
Yeah,
to the right?
also.
Yep. Because the dead strips in digital was the way of detecting that the car was there. So if there are dead strips in both ends, then it should be unidirectional.
It looked like there were not dead strips on the other end.
No, there are.
Are really or?
They're not fully broken.
Yeah, they are
They're
fully broken.
for-
Here's a dead strip,
The light. Yeah.
Where's the
light that
second
is
brake?
not
and here's a dead strip.
The other side has much larger breaks between it, or is it just the camera?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
And we can see that the dead strip also they are on the opposite side.
No,
That still doesn't answer our question. We still don't know what the difference is between red and
I'm
yellow.
gonna try the yellow one because normally those work, but I don't get the red one to do the proper thing. But okay, we'll see next time.
Ask Tamar because he's fond of these curved lane changers, so he might know.
Okay, I see him this weekend.
My gut feeling is that basically you could remove the solenoids from one side and just use the one from one side from the opposite side, and having basically being unidirectional. And the flippers should be on the exiting, able to move freely, like Scalatics I think they had.
I will do that.
Is it possible each lane should have a yellow and a red instead of one lane being two yellow and one lane being two red?
I don't know.
I don't think he saw it with Ninko Electronics before, did you, Henry?
Sorry?
Yeah, so we don't know. Henry doesn't know how it was originally configured.
Oh, this was the original configuration.
Okay, so it was red and yellow on each end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could there be a difference? Could there be a difference in how much torque is required to throw the switch? One of them could be higher torque than the other.
No, I don't think there is anything to do with that.
You're not going to give another speed. You give them both 12 volts. The yellow one and the red one. So I don't see there any change of purpose in it.
Can you hold it up again so I can see all four solenoids? Okay, so on one end, the yellow, did you already switch the yellow and the red on the other end?
No,
Okay, so it was all,
I was trying to, but now we're talking, it fell on the ground, and one of the copper threads fell off, and you cannot repair that.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
But what I was wondering is if John is on the right track, then then the yellows would both be on the inside and reds both on the outside.
Let's see, it was this configuration.
Was yellow there?
So it was yellow at
Yellow
that
on the
side. So
outside.
on the same side, it's yellow.
Okay.
No, it's
So if you look at it from the
No,
top,
no.
the flippers are different sizes, aren't they? Smaller on the inside and bigger on the outside.
You can see a difference in the torque on underneath there. You can see
No,
the
I mean
difference.
the yellow, and when it showed at the beginning, and maybe we can go to the recordings. The yellow was on the left side, was on the lane that is closer to Eric.
It was originally when he first showed us the track, yeah.
here's
So
normally
if
the
you
red
see
one.
basically-
Here was the red
No,
one, and here is the yellow one. And
no, it was not like that, Eric.
Yeah, you
Is
had
it I remember-
you had the yellow on the other one before.
yes, because I was trying to make this one work on this side. So I did the red one out, and I think okay, I will try the yellow one.
Okay.
But original it was this.
Okay.
And here the red one.
So are the flippers different physically? The outside flipper versus the inside flipper? So if you flip the track back over right side up, the flipper to go from outside to inside, is it a different size or shape than the flipper going from inside to outside? Because I don't have any Ninco lane changers I don't remember how close they are to Scalextric. It looks like the actual flipper is the same size.
Yeah.
So then torque wouldn't make any sense.
Well, if it has a bigger torque or a lesser torque, it doesn't matter. It has to work with 12 volt. Whatever.
Do those flippers have to work in opposite directions to one another or anything? Does one have to be powered when the other one isn't?
Yeah, think so. No, I think they normally they're powered both because this is original hardware that was in it.
So that you had one of those at each end of the track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were constantly under power if you use it like a Ninco. That's for sure.
Yeah. The coloration might, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why it would be different colors. I'm lost.
Yeah,
but maybe Carl will know.
Let's see if the yellow one works. Now this one won't work anymore. And there's a lot of trouble because you have to search them like Geo did on AliExpress. I've talked to people in America or whatever. You cannot find those solenoids. It's very difficult. No, it's impossible to get them. Yeah, if you buy them in America by Professor Motor, but he will charge you 100 euros to send them.
Yeah, because you get the whole track.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, lane changer fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Hopefully tomorrow knows.
Yeah. So the other short show and tell. It's very quick. Just a couple of pictures of scale.
Wow.
Is right.
I don't know what you guys are seeing.
We see the white shell with the other pieces and 14
Bag of parts.
So you see basically the body shell of Ferrari or fantasy car. So Ferrari 488 from sideways. So I got to one. And actually, yeah, it's kind of, I'm building at the same time, or I was building at the same time, one from Area 71. That one, the 3D printed one. Anyway, so I got this one a couple of weeks ago, and so I just kind of checked the weight of the body with some of the details. It's pretty light. I mean, 14.3 grams. It's really good. And then I weighed the interiors of the car, and of course, I mean, there is the cockpit and the motor section, and maybe this picture is better. It's 9 grams. That's a huge amount of weight for just a freaking interior. Anyway, so plan here is to vac form the interior, and I think I can drop this down to maybe a couple of grams, so it should be okay. But anyway, so you know me, so I like to remove any extra fat that I have on the cars, and checking ways where I can remove that. Another thing here that to look at, like the I mean, the windows are very fine, transparent pieces, but the windshield and the rear window they're quite heavy pieces, so it in total is like 2.3 grams, and I think I'm going to do the vacuum form for the front and rear glass, and leave the side as they are. And so this should shave another gram here. And just the body, I mean, it's not a small car, and 9 grams is a pretty good starting point, but I'm never happy with what I get. So I managed to kind of shave more than 2 grams from the body.
Really?
And then, like the other, I mean, again, try to kind of remove as much weight as possible from the back. This is the rear wing, the wing and rear panels. I think it's like close to the bottom part of the this other piece here, to the rear. So there is some grams to be gained here. I think it's not the actual weight of the pieces, because the wing is not sitting properly on the scale, so it's a bit more than 0.7 grams. And so when you put everything together, after I kind of remove weight, so you can get down to 11.6 grams. And I think, again, removing another gram from the windows, if I work from the front the back, I think this should be around 10.5 grams maybe, so which is good starting point for a GT3. And then, of course, I would need to put lights and whatnot. So I think it will be underweight of any kind of specs that I might raise this one. So which basically means that I can then position the weight wherever I want. And as I mentioned, it's pretty short. So that's where I am at. So the next step will be to try to start drilling some holes for the fog lights, that of course then put them, and start thinking about vacuum forming and livery I'm gonna use.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, I'm going to do a quick segue to Club Corner, because I just got a quickie one. We raced at Russ's track, which is that big wood routed track with that huge, long, straightened bank that we do fuel racing at. And on one of the heats, me and another guy were neck and neck a lot of the time, trading places, who in first place, second place. And it came down to fuel. The last heat, we were just absolutely neck and neck. We weren't next to each other, but we were pretty close as far as lanes. There was only one lane between us. And as it often does, it comes down to when the power is cut, how much roll you get when your controller is no longer in control. And in this case, it came down to one of the closest upsets in club history, where one of us got a basket and the other did not get the basket. So literally we both coasted into this situation where I was literally just under the light getting a lap, and he was inches from the light to get another lap. I would have still won because I was inches ahead, but I can't remember a time this has ever happened where not only was somebody parked under the light to get that lap, but somebody was just inches behind him, missing the same lap. So that was an epic event, raucous laughter and applause and hand shaking and everything. It was a fantastic race. And of course, racing your us is always a blast. I love doing the fuel races. Other guys don't. I came in third, so that's, and Eric, our super fast guy, he was on first. So technically I got second place because Eric doesn't count.
Shouldn't have told us. Should have just left it. Should have told us. Just go first and second. Who knows? It sounds way better.
I'm too honest. Anywho, good night of racing. Anybody else want to talk about racing stuff? Gio got your hand up to talk about racing. Anybody else want to talk about racing?
I have some racing stuff if you also want to.
Okay,
okay, so maybe Jeremy can go first this time.
I was going to say, I'm going to let Jeremy go, and then we'll let Gio go. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Sure. Let me share my screen. On Sunday, am I sharing my screen? There we go. We had a race. We had 6 people come out. This is at Chris's track, Ely, Iowa, if you're ever interested in coming out. And 3 of our regulars didn't show up. 2 of them wound up in the hospital that weekend, and then 1 had COVID. So I don't know what happened. We still had 6 racers. We had a pretty good time. And the only thing of interest was that I wound up winning 2 classes, which I never win 2 classes ever. So I'm going to take the win. Otherwise, usually, like if you look here, it's always the same guy. So he won. Yeah. He won the other 4 races, but it was quite the stunning upset to get 2 wins on him. That was all. Anyway, we have a race this weekend also. If you're in the Iowa area, please stop by.
What were the classes you won?
Let me see. Not Slotted Classics, not Group C, not Thunder Slot. Oh, Legends and our Vintage class. So Legends, I'm the only person driving the Chevy right now, and I won. So that was kind of interesting. I know they're all the same chassis, but I think the body weight does factor into that. I don't know how. That could just be crazy.
What do you race for Vintage, Jeremy?
We race Vintage as any car you want that's in line with a limit on motor spec. So I think I run a little Nenko Jaguar.
Oh.
But, yeah,
so
it's kind of a busted class. It started out as Nenko Classics, but then they eventually moved out of Nenko Classics because there's none to find, and now there's just nothing really good for that class.
Okay, so basically a Nenko Classics class, but expanded to other brands with
it's everything now. I think the dominant car are like the Fly inline ones that from like the Lolas and such. But oh well.
Yeah. Good class.
That is it. Stop by if you're in Iowa. Look me up. Gio's dying to come out here. We have lots of corn.
If anybody's in the Pacific Northwest next Saturday, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, the 24th, I'm hosting a digital race. And if you want to see what digital is like at Greg's house, come over and race some digital at Greg's house next Saturday, the 24th. Anybody else want to promote a race? All right, go ahead, Gio.
Racing, Greg.
Just run what you brung, whatever you feel like running from my stock. It's just super casual.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to get in touch with the people from Redmond, Microsoft, in order to have a trip up in Seattle and go and meet Greg.
Sounds good.
I'll do a race at this track. Yeah.
Even if I'm not hosting a race, you come over and we'll play.
Yeah. Anyway, so and if that happens, if you are in New Zealand and you want to drop by on my track, I mean, just give me a bit of heads up. Anyway, so last night, so was a race night, and as I said, I want to test the oxygen lane changer, but as I mentioned, was a failure. But in any case, we raced, and so I did. It was just four of us with Jan in the McLaren, the blue one Golf, Alex on the red McLaren, and then Combi on the M6, and I'm racing the new slotted R8. So I did a bit of, I just did a small modification on the car. I think I mentioned that the car is a flippy floppy guide. So I put in a slotting plus long guide that I kind of reduce in length and put like a nylon lock with M2 screw. I solved the problem. So the guide is much less floppy than it was before, and kind of helped a bit with the racing. So this is a lineup for practice, and so we did a bunch of laps after changing the lane changer. So nothing really too exciting. I mean, yeah, both of us pretty close in terms of speed or lap times. Most of us, I mean, Combi close by. Then went into qualify, and these are the results. So actually, these 555 and 559 are, I mean, at least for, I mean, those for Jan and myself, I think they were off at the end of the main straight. The only one that I think was legit to some certain extent was Alex. Although I think he mentioned something like he stopped the
zoom in.
Shit.
Thank you.
I always forget. I mean, I have like this. I don't know how big is my screen, so I can see that perfectly. I know that I have good eyesight. Anyway, so as I was mentioning, so the first two are fake laps, let's say, because basically our cars kind of went out on the main straight. The only one that is okay was, I think, Alex, although he mentioned that he kind of stopped with using another car as a brake, let's say, or air brake. And Combi managed to do a 599, which is basically one of his first laps below the 6. So getting into the 5, which is good. So qualify. So at the end was Alex first, then myself, because my legit fast lap was a 561, and then Jan with a 567. That of course I'm not here. It's just what to kind of remember or check during the qualify session. So for those of you that don't know, if there is a fake lap or a lap that is too short, let's say, we cannot kind of remove or revoke, kind of delete the lap with using RCS O2. So that's why basically I have to show you these fake laps or too short laps. Anyway, I'm saying that, then we went to line up for race 1. So as I mentioned, Alex first, me second, then Jan, and then Combi. And can you guys see this? I'm maybe too close.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so oh shit, a 538. So that's also another short lap. Anyway, so first race was won by myself. Second was Alex, and then Combi came third. Yeah, I think Jan's car. The main problem was that, especially his car, is collecting a lot of marbles from the track. I believe, I don't know if it's, I mean, all cars are getting marbles, but this car is the one that is much more sensitive to it. And once basically it's mid the race, the car is undrivable. You can see that he's kind of going all over the place. So he did like a pit lane stop where put the car into the pit lane, and then when they are cleaning his tires, and that's why kind of lost some laps from myself and Alex.
Gio, are you running on G25 tires?
No, man. What? No. NSR 5216. I mean, and these are the Evo ones. Before, when we didn't have the Evo compound, they were not balling up like that. So I don't know if it's maybe it's the Evo crap that they're using. I don't know, but there is we can see much more marbles than before. And actually, when we use like underslot tires, we don't see those marbles. So it's, I think, the compound. But anyway, okay. So then we move on to race 2. So these are the lineup, and my race. So this was something that happened to Greg in that race. So I started the race I think in front, and then I was kind of ready to lap Alex, but he's quick, so I was trying to overtake him, and then in our inner R pin, basically when we go around and come back, he came off, and basically when he came off, there was like maybe a lane change and they changed. So basically there was a crash between the two, so the of us, and so my car and his car were off the track, but at the same time, Jan and the M6 start getting closer as well. And so there were like 4 cars in these bloody corners, and they were all close by. So when the track halt was revoked, so everybody was kind of punching really hard. And I think that Jan was in the inner lane in a corner. He went like full blast. His tail hit my car, and I got basically on the guardrail. So 2 damage point in less than 20 centimeters of track or race. I was pretty pissed off as well. And so then I had another 2 track holes and damage points. So, and basically I said, okay, shit, the race over for me. And this was like 10 or 20 laps into the race, right? So it's 120 laps. So I went in, repair, and then I said, okay, I'm gonna start to push and drive like hell. And I also was off the pace of the pit stops, right? Because I kind of full it up and repair, and then I went out. And as you but I didn't change tires, so I was using my hard tires until basically they're kind of almost run off the wheel, let's say, almost no brakes. So, and that was of course last as well. So I start to manage to kind of recover, or kind of getting some laps on the guys and getting closer and closer and closer. But again, because I didn't change tires, my brake points were all over the places, and I kind of screw up another 5, almost 5 damage points. So at this point it was like around 9. So I did another kind of repair on my second pit stop, and I think I was like between first and second, between with Alex and Jan kind of getting closer, or getting closer to them. And in I think there was like Jan had a couple of offs, and it was like maybe, oh no, so it was like maybe 1 minute before the end of the race, and Jan had to do a splash and dash, and so I got from him the first position. And then I thought that I had enough fuel, so I was not paying attention. I was just pushing hard, and then like 1 lap before the end, I ran out of fuel and cover. So I was trying to overtake Combi. You can see my car just like when it was almost kind of taking over from Combi, then like lost a bit of power, and then Jan basically got the victory from that. It was a really close. Same stuff as Greg, and the difference, I didn't took a picture, but the difference was not that too much. So he managed to clip the 122 lap, and I was just behind him, but I didn't manage to go over the start finish line. So this was kind of closer race that I recovered from very shitty start. So then we went in semi-darkness, so with the 1 light only on in the garage, and this looks like short race, but it was kind of not really. So what happens there was, this is the second time that this happens. So during the race, track call, then we start going, and then one car does not go, and this was combi car. So he was pressing the throttle on the controller, but the car was not moving. Okay, so track call again, take the car out, check if maybe. So we made sure that the power was coming from the truck to the chip, but there was no power seems going from the chip to the motor. So I thought, okay, maybe wire was off or something. So start pulling, nothing. And then I remember that we had actually was Jan, 2 or 3 races ago, that he had this kind of similar problem. And what was the controller actually. So the controller seems not sending any power to kind of command power to the cars of the truck call. So resetting the controller, so power down, I mean cycling, and power up, and then the power was stopped. And this was the same thing with the combi car. So anyway, and so because we were like testing if the car was going, not going, so we lost. We're like, and all the cars stopped on the track. The time was going because otherwise you cannot test the power on the car. And that's why basically we had like all the 114 14 laps because we lost a couple of minutes with this kind of testing. So this was the main thing. So last race, this was in completely dark with the reverse grid. So Jan and myself at the back there, and this time I think the race I try to keep my nose as clean as possible and without limiting crashes. So this only one crash or damage point when it was kind of not too bad. Alex was leading. I think between me and Alex there was not much for most of the race. But then I think when he went to the pit stop, he had again some of the problem with the brake button that is used for selecting the function that was not working properly. I think and kind of lost a couple of laps there. Jan had a shit race. 16 damage points when I don't know what was happening there. Really kind of screw up on his head. But was he went away disgusted basically because this was our last lap. We went away say, shitty race. I'm going. See you later. But it was fun. So when you have like 4 guys on a truck like this, we have like 40 minutes race, but usually there are not many truck calls, and you do long stint without pausing, and it's kind of fun. It also goes pretty quickly and intense. Anyway, that's all.
Good stuff. Fun night. All right. I don't see any other hands, so the floor is open. We've got a whole 10 minutes of live. Mike, what you got? You're good.
Oh, okay. We had 2 races. The return of Shiggy has been gone for a couple weeks. And he was definitely out of sorts from standpoint of racing. He had a lot of crashes. But we had 2 races, one with Polycar F1s, the 2022 versions, and the other was Group 5 Sideways. And we did our usual blind pick the car thing, and I ended up with the BMW 320, which is absolutely the worst of the sideways cars. It's a little bit too high center of gravity, and it's been tough, but I did get a chance to do some work on it, and that helped a lot. I managed to pull off an ungodly quali lap on my last of the 5 laps that we get for qualification, which I couldn't believe that I got fastest lap because the other cars were just like so much faster all the way along. During practice, I was like maybe half a second off the pace. And I don't know what I did. I just cleaned the tires up and, put some Inox on the brakes to clean them off a little bit. And just the 5th lap, I just went crazy. And I stayed up with most of the others during the race. It was close. It was within there, but there were a couple of track calls that I got good calls on, and a couple of we had a couple of problems with the software stuff, and I gained a little bit on those too. And I think that overall was the big thing in the end. But I managed to pull out the win. Had to stop 2 laps from the end for fuel, which was pretty close, but I did pull it off by a couple laps. And then in F1, I again got the slowest car of the 3 that I've got, and still managed to pull off. I did a little BOP, and in fairness, Shiggy got the fastest car of the 3, which is about 0.3 faster for no explainable reason. 4.5 balance is off, but it just goes fast. And I ended up giving him a little bit more fuel problem than he had, and then he created more problems for himself and ended up down the order to third again. So and I pulled that one off really close again with Mike. He was with Retby. He was on my tail pretty hard, and I think he was on the same lap at the end as I was, but I wasn't far ahead for sure. So, but it was good fun, and had a great time. So, and on a side note, I forgot about show and tell before. I did manage to get 3 cars set up for oxygen. I still haven't got my 3rd controller, so no oxygen race until I get that figured out. So we'll see what happens there. Right now, I was just playing around. I sort of took those old chips that we had abandoned earlier, and I just did different firmware on them, and we'll see what happens. I don't know whether it'll work or not.
I mean, if the problem was, I don't remember what the problems were, but it was like with Scalextric digital firmware or something, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't I don't remember what we were doing, but the chips didn't work right no matter what we did. But things have moved on quite a bit since that time. So, it's possible that the firmware was the problem and we fixed it. So I'll see. It could be whether it's a problem with the chip, and since I'm sort of pushed myself into oxygen now, maybe I'll get a move on and get those chips either fixed or the firmware checked out, and we'll see what happens.
So I'm here to help. I did poke my head in when you first started streaming, and I saw that you showed the guys one of the oxygen cars and drove it around on the track a little bit. Did they get to drive one around and see how it felt? If it felt different than
Actually, Shiggy really liked it right off the bat. He liked the controller feel and everything. So, yeah, they're on board with it. And I think the race management system will be similar since it's RCSO2. So it's not going to be that much different, I think, for what we're doing. But, I'll have to get things squared away. I really don't want to have to spend the money for another SCP-3, but it may be easier because they're easier because you can plug them in easily and charge them and stuff, and you don't have to muck about with other stuff. And they're going to be the latest stuff for version 4. So, and I did get the dongle upgraded to the latest firmware, which is 4.0, I think.
So just to kind of throw another wrench at you, the old dongle is really not ideal for version 4. It'll probably work okay, I believe, as long as you're only doing a few cars. But it's not suitable for version 4 with a lot of cars, I think. I haven't played with it. What I would do is, until you get the blue dongle, just put version 3 back on the old dongle, the latest version 3, whatever it is, 3.12b or something like that.
Okay, I got to find out how to do that. Part of it, go back.
The same way you went forward. once you in the bootloader, you connect to the dongle. It'll tell you what the firmware is, and then you click upgrade, but then choose the other firmware. It should give you
okay.
firmware. But yeah, stick with version 3 with the old dongle, and then do version 4 if you feel like it with the new dongle if you feel like it. In your situation, I don't see a whole lot of reason to go version 4.
Benefit to going 4?
Yeah, there's not.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless you run into some kind of weird thing that only happens with version 3, but they're still trying to. They're not ditching version 3. You know, they're if they find a bug that exists in version 3, they'll still fix it. But yeah.
Yeah, I just figured out how to get the dongle to upgrade yesterday, and I haven't gone back then. I debated about version 4, and I went, okay, is that version 4 here, or is that the different? I didn't know whether version 4 downloaded to the old dongle.
Yeah, you can convert the old dongle in with to version 4.
Okay, all right. So then I'll go back to the 3.
Yeah, the really tricky bit is when you're trying to go old chips. What was it? Was it? No, it's was it the old chips or the controller? You had to do like an interim version firmware. Controller. Okay, so
yeah.
So if you try to do the old controller, not SCP3, but the previous ones to go to version 4, you've got to use a special interim firmware, and you basically jump from version 3 to this special interim firmware, and then from there to version 4.
Oh, I see.
Well, you need also to change the dongle.
Yeah, it's a process. I would not recommend doing it unless you're at a point where like I really want to use this controller with version 4, and then you can.
Yeah. Well, all I want to do right now is at least get 3 controllers working, and until I get my SCP2 to get the right firmware on it, because it's an Arc Pro now. Until I can do that, nothing happens. So we need at least 3 controllers. Ironically, I went back to try and put oxygen firmware on one of my Scalextric Arc Air controllers, and couldn't do it. It wouldn't allow it. It was like, I thought, well, we can have the race, and somebody will have to use the other controller. Maybe I'll use the Scalextric controller to do it, and we'll have the race. But no joy on that. So I got to figure out. Yeah, I went to the NFR toolbox and I got the firmware downloaded, but it wouldn't connect. It wouldn't. I got the controller to connect to the NFR toolbox, but I couldn't get it to start the firmware.
Interesting.
So, yeah. It's.
Come on over.
Well, you mentioned the race you were going to do the 24th. I may bring a big box with me.
You're welcome to. Absolutely. Yep, we'll do it. Okay.
Have you ever considered analog?
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the end stream, everybody. Bye. We're saying bye right now. Bye. Stream finished. Analog is cool.
Y'all